Welcome back to the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. This week, I have a great conversation with Dr. Lani Jones. She's got an incredible business in which she has a doctorate in psychology. And so she works with executives and business leaders and kind of overlaps this idea of leading a business with her psychology background. And so we have a great conversation of how to lead personally, lead your business, talk about some psych topics that I'm really interested in. The conversation I think is really interesting and knowledgeable, and it's a great episode today. I did write a book called Master Your First Job. It is the remarkable path from first day to first promotion. This is the book that every young employee needs and every employer wishes they had. If you'd like a free copy of this book, I'd love to give one to you. You can go to masteryourfirstjob.com/free, and you can download a free e-copy of the book there. It's masteryourfirstjob.com/free to get a free copy of my book, Master Your First Job. It was a best-selling book on Amazon in career guides and job hunting. So go ahead and get your free copy there. Let's dive into my conversation with Dr. Lani Jones. Dr. Lani Jones, thanks so much for being on the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. I'd love for you to take a few minutes and share a little bit about you and your story.
Hey, Jacob. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. So I am a clinical psychologist and advisor. And so I started my career in a corporate healthcare hospital setting. Thought I had my dream job. I had been working a decade for it with all of my degrees and such. And then within a few years was pretty burnt out and was like, oh no, what do I do now? Love the work I was doing. Just didn't love the environment. And so one of the things on my do not want list in life was a private practice or to be a business owner. That was like, I had been very steady on that. And then I was like, oh, what now? And so I guess we're doing private practice. And so I did that for a number of years and really grew to love the business side of things. Started to see, just as a business owner, all the opportunities it brings, and really more than just giving yourself a paycheck, how you create your time, your life, your resources, your sphere of influence. And then a couple years ago, had kind of plateaued in there. It was very stable. I had a thriving practice. Everything was running smoothly. And it was kind of the question of, do I do this another 20, 30 years? Like, is this it? What's next? And so after coming back from about a 6-week sabbatical, I spent most of that time abroad, but just decided, okay, I am ready for the next challenge. And out of COVID, just by happenstance, had gotten this group of executives, entrepreneurs on my caseload, was doing way more therapy than I ever had because I was generally on the testing psychology side of things, like autism, ADHD, and working with these entrepreneurs. I'm like, man, I really love merging my psych world with the business world, because in those conversations, we'd be talking about managing leadership teams, or they're going through a divorce at home, but they're going through a reorg in the office. And so significant stress in both parts. And so moving into that coaching consulting sphere, then I'm like, wow, I can merge both my loves now of both business and psychology. And so a year ago, took the leap, closed the physical location on my private practice, and said, okay, let's go on this new adventure. So
this is really cool. I mean, I'm having more questions now that you've shared that background. Before we dive in any further, I do want to ask you, fun question I ask all my guests. I read a book called Master Your First Job. I'd love to know, what was your first job?
So if we're going like all the way back, because my first adult job really didn't happen until about 28, because I spent the first... Yeah, I was doing school the whole time. And I mean, there were some odd jobs in there, on campus jobs, but probably my first was mowing yards. So going back to like about 12, I think, my parents were very much of, hey, you need to be responsible. You need to, learn some skills. And so mowing yards, yard work, some outside painting, things like that. I actually really don't mind mowing. I like being outside. I like the physical work. And so, yeah, there was a lot of yard mowing in my early days.
What about your what's your first job you paid taxes on?
In high school, I worked for our county tobacco coalition. I was in charge of marketing and advertising. So I'm totally going to date myself on this because, okay, I graduated from high school in '04. I'll just put that
Okay.
out there. And so back then it was newspaper ads, video spots. Like
Sure.
there was no talk of social media. And I guess I was just like a really responsible high schooler because the title makes it sound way more glamorous than it is. So
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, you're like writing ad copy for radio stations for that's a like that's awesome.
yeah, at the
uh,
state level, like they gave me some supports, and so I
yeah,
had
yeah.
to like just organize it, tweak it, make it more local,
Okay.
establish like the local relationships with
Yeah.
people. So it wasn't totally from scratch. I was given like a framework. So
Yeah.
don't want to overstate my responsibilities here.
No, that's cool. Okay, I have some questions based on like your story and stuff you said. So I have a similar story, and I think I was younger working fast food and not in the medical world, but and that like having something, having a job that I enjoyed and then all of a sudden falling in love with the business side of things. And this idea of mixing the psych world and the business world, I thought stood out to me because I find myself as a coach, I think it's ignorant to not dive into personal stuff on calls and to just pretend that you show up to work and have nothing else going on and that there's just business solutions to what's going on. And so I always find myself kind of leaning into this, like even stuff like, well, how are you sleeping? Because that's going to have an effect on how you lead. And so I like this idea of mixing it. And even personally, I'll be vulnerable for a second. I told you this pre-show, but I've been going to see counselor therapists. And so I don't know what the proper word is, but I've been doing that for the last 6 months and have loved it. And I felt weird calling because they're like, hey, like, what are you going through to try to pair me with a counselor? And I'm like, to be honest, like, not really a lot. I know life's going to get more hectic and I want to protect my brain and make sure I can show up the best as a business owner, as a husband, as a dad, just as a friend, all of it. And they were like, you'd be surprised how many people like you come honestly like seeking out as like a high performance additive to their life basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is really interesting, you mixing it both. Like what, I guess just at a high level, what do you do for business owners now? Do you think it's more of the psych side or more of the business side?
Probably the psych in the business context, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, tell me
And
about
so
that.
your phrase of why you're seeking out therapy kind of summed up a lot of what I'm doing. And so
Yeah.
the framework I'm using right now is called the final 1%, because I was working with all these entrepreneurs and executives, and they've done the majority, checked the boxes, got the degrees, got the jobs, even personally, the families, their stable finances, all these things. But they're like, okay, I need to level up. I need to take things to a new gear. But really, when you've done the majority, it's really the little 1% tweaks that are going
Yeah.
to take you to that next level. The
Right.
Are you sleeping? Do you have mental clarity? Do you have decision fatigue? Like, how are you feeling your body? How are you showing up in relationships, both in the office and at home? And so it sounds like you were kind of in that, like, yeah, it's not I'm having this mammoth life crisis here. It's just, I want to level up. Like, I want to keep going. I want to keep improving. And so when you get to a certain level, then it's those 1% tweaks that actually take you to that next level.
Why is that final 1% so hard to reach?
One, I think so few people do it. And so we don't have a lot of models for it.
Mm.
Because society as a whole, wow, we've got a lot of really bad habits and behaviors going on. And I saw this like from our kids to the adults I was working with, of if someone would come in my office and they're depressed or anxious, I'm going to ask like, how are you sleeping? How are you feeling your body? What's your movement? What is your screen time usage? How are your relationships? Just even friendships, your social circle, because all those things influence those symptoms. Or if they were inattentive, okay, well, there's a lot of explanations for that outside of ADHD. And so, in a lot of ways, our society is not set up to help us succeed. And so, to actually be countercultural, to go against status quo, takes a lot of conscious effort and intentionality to say, I'm not just going to look like everyone around me. And so it actually takes more effort than I feel like to do that 1%.
It's funny you mentioned sleep. I've been like the last 2 years kind of obsessed with with sleep.
Okay.
just because I dealt with a lot of like insomnia and stuff. And some of
Hmm.
it was definitely stress induced with stuff I was going through. But even after that, I just felt like I just had a really hard time falling asleep. My wife would fall asleep in an instant, and I'm sitting there for an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. I read a book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Phenomenal. Now I'm like recommending it to everyone. One of these things that you feel like is common with like business owners, business leaders is something that could help with that final 1%. Like, is that pretty common?
I think we're just now kind of getting the cultural conversations around the importance of sleep. And like people are starting to acknowledge that the research exists of this is actually really important to my overall health. Like, if you are someone who's like, okay, I want to be at my best healthy, and that means mentally, physically, just so I'm showing up for my family, I'm showing up for my business, all of those areas, I can't just blow sleep off because a lot of the beliefs of, oh, you just got to push harder. And people are getting maybe like a solid 4 hours, maybe five on a good night kind of thing. And it's like, oh, that's impacting your mental clarity, your decision making, your executive functioning, all these things that are really ultimately impact how you're showing up in all your spheres. And so I think people are getting more open to the, oh, this is important. Like, I should pay attention to this.
I feel so dumb. I used to pride myself when I was younger on like, all I need is four. Like I can function on four as if that was like a badge of honor of all I need is 4 hours of sleep to function and like perform at a high level. Dumb in hindsight. So I think sometimes it's hard for when you're in it, right, to recognize that you've plateaued. Maybe you think like things are going really, really well. My business is great. My family's great. Like my personal life's great, but they've plateaued. Like, how do you help leaders recognize when they've plateaued, even if everything, especially from the outside, like looks really successful?
Usually there's some sense that they can't quite articulate or put their finger on, like maybe I'm unhappy. Is that what's going on? Oftentimes it can be a case of they're feeling bored. Now, most probably
Mm,
wouldn't use the term bored. They may say, like, I don't have any creative outlets or intellectual stimulation,
yeah,
whatever's important to them, or they're feeling stuck. Or some, when we talk about just that busyness piece, is feeling like they don't have much agency over their life, feeling like they've just
good point.
shifted into like their cultural path, their social path. Kids are playing travel ball, you're gone every weekend with tournaments, then you've got all your other personal travel just with your business side of things and everything that's going on. Is I've also found that agency is really a key piece of this whole conversation too.
No, it's really good. I think agency is I mean, I'm thinking even myself, I'm like the agency is crucial. So something you've talked about is this idea of a strategic yes and strategic no. It's something that I've worked on for myself personally. I know you have a powerful story about an executive who like overhauled her schedule by making yes sacred and no strategic, which I love that word is sacred. Like what did her transformation look like?
So I had an executive I started working with. She was 1 year into the C suite. So, this was the goal, C suite by 40.
Yeah.
This was the peak, everything she was running for, business mentors, all the things. She got there and she was kind of like, shouldn't I be happier about this? Like, shouldn't I be excited? Like, haven't I arrived, so to speak? I hit the
Yeah.
goal. She checked all the success boxes personally as well. And she had a very full calendar. And she's just like, yeah, do I just keep doing this for another 20 to 30 years? That was really the kind of the question. But there's also oftentimes I see as well is there's this underlying guilt of even asking the question, can I want more or do I want something to look differently? Because we're in the hashtag blessed culture. And so your kids are healthy, you have generally stable income, you have the house, the cars. Like, why are you asking for more? Why are you questioning where you are? And that's really a big key piece. And so once we unpacked some of those layers too, and then went back to that agency piece of actually not only as a C suite exec, but in your family too, like we really worked through mission, vision, values. And I know a lot of times that can come across now as corporate fluff or it's, the one day workshop or the trendy lingo. But if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then you're just going to stay in that rat race. So it was about a 2-year process with her of just peeling back the layers, peeling back, okay, what is important to you? Not only on the business side of things, but also just what are you trying to instill in your kids? And there was such decision making fatigue all over the place, or even something like when she started saying no to things or said, hey, Thursday nights is family night, you get a lot of weird looks for that. Like, you're available. You aren't going to let your kid travel ball because you want your Thursday nights protected. Like, that's weird kind of thing. And so there's so many layers to this. But she got to a point though that she's like, I actually love my calendar. And she started loving her work more because she had clarity, both personally and professionally, of why am I doing what I'm doing? What is actually taking my success and transforming it into legacy? And so she was so vision focused that she felt renewed. She felt more focused. She had more clarity. She had fulfillment. And so, yeah, that was an overhaul of, okay, because she was like, oh man, I got to the C-suite. Did I just totally screw up? But it's like, no, we just needed a little overhaul perspective shift, but then digging more of those psych layers too. We had to peel back on some things.
That's cool. I'm big on MVV, as you call it, mission, vision, and values. And I've seen both sides of this, right? Like, I was all about mission statement. I worked for a company that takes this very seriously. So I worked for Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A luckily also is all about like really caring about people and finding your personal why and connecting it to like the business and your job. And so I did all that. And then I'll dog on Chick-fil-A a little bit. There's a look. It's every corporate. It can get a little corporate, right? It can get a little like, okay, totally. This is a little fluffy now. What are we actually doing here? But I think when you get it right, I mean, I wrote down like if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, like if you don't know what's important to you, like you said, that's crucial. I read a parenting book. I have a 3-year-old, and I'm trying to figure out what we're doing. But the biggest piece of advice I got out of it was like if you're parenting towards a goal, whether you know it or not. And so like define what that goal is, kind of like define what that mission is. And I'm like, oh, this is a mission statement. Like I've done this for the business. I've not done it for us personally. It's like, if you don't define it, you're going to parent towards this ambiguous goal and not know what it is. So I think like that mixing of, it's got to come in the personal life too. I thought about too, like the whole plateau idea of Tom Brady said this years ago. He said it in a few different interviews, but he gets to like the top of, I mean, he won 7 Super Bowls. You can't get better than that in the NFL as a quarterback. He's going to go down as the greatest of all time. Like, and he said several times, like, there's got to be more than this of like, I got to the peak and there's got to be something else here. And again, maybe it was personal life, right? Like he got to the top of his business, right? His field, but there's got to be more than that. Okay, I want to come back to mission and values, time and decision making, something I'm very passionate about as well. Like, why is redefining the relationship between time and decision making so crucial for high impact leadership?
I think getting really intentional and cognizant of those two things helps you get out of the rat race, because we are living in a society, you are constantly bombarded with decisions. I mean, even if you're like hopping on DoorDash, what do you want for dinner, or Amazon, or what are you streaming, limitless decisions at your fingertips. And so really coming back to, hey, in both spheres, personally and professionally, like with your kids, what are your family values? How are you raising them? Like when they get 18 and they're out the door, what do you want to say? Okay, here's the top 3 things I instilled in my kids, or lessons they learned, or whatever that looks like. And so I had one CEO I was working with, and we were using terms values. And finally she just stopped me. She's like, my husband is just going to roll his eyes at this. We cannot call them values. And so we came up with the term efficiency guidelines, because they were both business owners, and there were all these questions. They were constantly bombarded with their kids of, do we do travel ball? Do we let them, use up these family resources? Do we do X, Y, and Z? Do we take these family vacations? And so it was the decision fatigue. And so I'm like, you need some efficiency guidelines. So an opportunity comes up, And it's a quick, does this align with what we're trying to accomplish as a family? Yes or no? Boom, we're on to the next thing. A decision is made. So thinking through of, yeah, okay, all these things that give me clarity actually help me take up less mental energy. Just like if we go down the talking about habits rabbit hole, when something becomes a habit, then it takes up a lot less mental space to actually execute on it because we just do it on autopilot. And so it decreases the time we're spending on them, it decreases the energy. And so really to level up that final 1%, those high achievers, it's how do I get more efficient just mentally too?
That's good. Like I've heard too, like everything you say no to, you're saying yes to something as well. Like saying no to travel ball is saying yes to more family nights a week or whatever, like your family being more together or whatever. I almost think I should have asked this in a different order of like mission and values, because I think that gives you decision making like structure to your yeses and nos, right? And with time management, like I know for me, time management is crucial. I like pride myself on being efficient, but a small way I've done this when you talk about decision making is I read something where it's like, have you ever noticed that a lot of big time CEOs just like wear pretty much the same outfit?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
I was like, yeah. And it was like, basically they've just eliminated that decision. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the outfit we're going to wear. And so I immediately went to my closet and to my like dresser, and I mean, I wear pretty much the same stuff every day. It's like maybe it's a different polo, but I wear polos 9 times out of 10. Like, so I have like my casual, like my t-shirts, my polos, and I have like my, more dressy outfits. But I basically pull out everything I don't wear. And then literally now it's almost like a Kanban is a term we use at Chick-fil-A of like lean almost of my polos. I just pick the one on the far left. When I do laundry, they go back on the far right. And I've eliminated this decision from my day of like, I know what I'm
Yes.
wearing. If I'm wearing a polo, I'm just picking the next polo and the next pair of pants or shorts and the next pair of shoes. And it's one less thing I have to spend mental capacity on every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad I did it. It seems small, but it's like, that could be 5 to 7 minutes of trying to this shirt with these shorts and these shoes. And now it's just kind of pre-decided. And I was glad I read that. Okay. You're a strong believer. You mentioned MVV, like mission, vision, values are not just buzzwords. How have you seen this overlap with, I guess, personal and professional, and it being used as a personal GPS, which we've kind of touched on? But I think like let's hammer this home, because if you're listening and you're still like, okay, it works for business, but I guess how can this be used in your personal life? And I'm a big believer, and if you get this right in your personal life, it's going to help you with your business as well. So like,
Absolutely.
let's dive in there.
So we live in a culture that totally prides itself on being busy. Like even
Yes,
I feel like a greeting is like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" Staying busy. And then you're supposed to say yes, and then you just like move on kind of thing.
that's
And
right.
so a couple years ago, I really got intentional about trying to take busy out of my vocabulary. And so when someone would say that, I'd be like, "I have a full purposeful schedule." And then they'd look at you like you have 10 heads. But I was like, I just don't want to be caught up in that culture, even though that's the socially acceptable response and you're just supposed to move on. And so even on my own calendar, looking at like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I don't want to be busy. That's easy. It is easy to be busy in our world.
Absolutely.
There's always something to say yes to, but is what's getting space on my calendar, is it productive? Is it purposeful? Is it actually working towards what I want? Like for me personally, I have a 2035 vision. I just did it last December. So I have a very clear 10-year plan, personally, professionally, like it covers every area of life of, okay, here are my goals. So is what I'm doing today, because I did have a little freak out when we hit June. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already 6 months in to
That's
like my
right. We're
10-year
halfway into the
plan.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, like that felt like a really significant amount of time. And when we
Yeah.
blink and the older we get, that's another psych rabbit hole of how like our memories change and why time feels faster.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't keep checking with that intentionality in MVV, that is just a way to help us get clarity and do that so that we are as impactful as we can be in all of our spheres of influence. And so be that our generosity, our financial giving, our time, our resources, how we're leading teams with our family, our friends, like our whole relationship ecosystem. And so it's just a way to help us get clear. So all of a sudden we don't blink and like another decade of life has passed us.
This is so good. And I love the word you said, intentional. I try to be intentional with my time, and we were in a season of very busy. And when we came out of that, we were like, hey, it's going to be okay to say, if someone asks us to hang out, we wouldn't lie. It's just like, we start saying like, hey, we have plans. Sometimes those plans we're sitting at home and having a night off.
That's great.
I'm like, I don't have to tell you what they are, but we have plans. Yeah. I read a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
Classic.
Facebook, but so good. And it's we wanted to build in free time. Honestly, one, for rest and like for the purpose of slowing down. And two, like if you don't have free time, it's harder to have spontaneous yeses, both for fun, for giving, like if someone needs help. And just like we've enjoyed our time more with friends, spending less time with friends, if that makes sense. Like instead of it being, it sounds like I've cut friends out. That's not it. But it's like, instead of like trying to fit in 5 out of 7 nights hanging out with people, maybe it's one night and we're not dreading it, or it's something to look forward to, and not like, this is the 5th night this week we've had something going on. And honestly, it's not them. I just don't want to see anybody. Like, because we've been rest first, it's been a lot more enjoyable to see people and be intentional and be like really, really present with them. Yeah, that slowing down and having rest is so important. So if someone's listening and they're like, I know that mission and values are important. I do it for my business. I'm seeing the importance of doing it for my personal life. Like, is there a framework or some questions you have that they could ask themselves that can help them start clarifying? Like, for me personally, what do these mission, vision, values look like?
So I'd say the first step is looking at your calendar, because your calendar doesn't lie. And so that is a very tangible way of, if some of these concepts feel too big, too overwhelming. And I actually have a starter kit on my website too, where if they need a starting point of where do I even go? So I say start with your calendar. Why is that commitment on your calendar at 5 o'clock tonight? Is it an obligation? Is it done out of guilt? Kind of as you were saying, back to, I feel more fulfilled with my friends when we're actually doing less, because then it's not like, oh, I wish I could stay home on the couch tonight, or I wish I didn't have to go out or be on, because this is a big thing for like introverts versus extroverts too. And how is your tank getting filled, so to speak? And so starting with that calendar and just saying, what is one thing I'd want to throw off? What is one thing that's done out of obligation or guilt, or because I feel like my friends would, like, it's just the socially acceptable thing to do. And so I'd get pushback, or I don't want to be the odd man out, or whatever it is, and start there.
That's good. And I'll have that linked in the episode descriptions too. I did just pull it up on your website. Dr. Lani Jones, this has been incredible. I do want to ask, like, we've talked about a lot of stuff. If there's one takeaway that someone could take from our conversation and like put it into action, or have their one knowledge point and write it down, what would it be?
Just asking themselves now choose one aspect, personal life, business, just say, why am I doing what I'm doing? And so even kind of writing out your own mission statement. And actually in that starter kit, it's on the homepage of my website, drlanijones.com. They can go, there's a plug and play there with a mission statement of just, here's what's important to me. Here are my skills. Here are my values. And then that helps you make way more efficient yes and no's.
I love it. Where can people connect with you, work with you? And I'll have it linked down below, but where can people connect with you if they want to work with you or learn more?
Yeah, they can start at my website, drlanijones.com, DRLANI Jones.com. They can get that starter kit there and that final 1% and start working through it on their own. But they can reach out to you through my website as well and figure out, what would it look like to work with me, and how can we get them turning that success into legacy.
I love it. I'll have that linked below here in the episode description, so you don't have to remember the spelling. Just go ahead and click that there and start. You can get that free guide. She's got a free call in there as well. So lots of free stuff you can get from Dr. Lani Jones. Thank you so much, Lanny, for being here and interviewing today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope everyone got a lot out of it. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening to this episode of the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Take care.